I dropped my needle into my coffee. Hi guys, and welcome to this episode of the Happy Knitting Podcast. My name is Julia and I'm coming to you as always from the south of Germany, from Munich. Today is Sunday, it's the 6th of October 2019, and I'm so glad that you're joining me today to talk about some knitting. This is a very impromptu episode, meaning we literally just got back from our little long weekend trip, and we got back quite early because the weather was miserable. I mean, we loved it. It was great because I just stayed inside all day and we watched a ton of How to Get Away with Murder. I did a ton of knitting, but after 2 days of that, we decided to come back a little bit early, which means that I can record this podcast. So here we are. I had no coffee today, which I'm about to rectify. I'm going to have my first sip in a second, and things can only get better from there. But yeah, what I'm trying to say is this podcast episode is not very much planned out. Not that they usually are, but especially so today. But nevertheless, thank you so much for tuning in today. If you're watching for the very first time, welcome. I really hope that you will enjoy this knitting podcast. And if you're coming back, thank you so much for being a regular viewer of this podcast. So, what are we going to talk about today? I have a finished object. We have a couple of whips to talk about. I'm not going to show all of them today because, as I keep saying, I don't really see the point in showing you the same things all over again if I've just knit a little bit of stockinette on a sock. But I have a couple of whips that I'll just show you very quickly. Going to try to keep this short. There are no acquisitions. I hope you're proud of me. Possibly some life in general chatter at the end, and that will be that. Also, my voice seems to be going, which I'm not sure why that is happening, but here we are. Before we get started, what am I wearing today? Today I'm wearing a super old cardigan. This is my ombre cardigan, which is a French, I think, design. It's spelled Embrun's. And when I knit this, which was, I think, in just before Christmas 2017, I think, I talked at length about this pattern. I think it was originally published in French and then translated into English, which is why I had a lot of problems with it. So I wouldn't necessarily, I don't know, I wouldn't knit it again, but if you love it, then of course you could. I knit it out of some John Arbon yarn, John Arbon knit by number DK. Don't ask me for the colorway number, I have no idea, but it should be in my project pages if you're interested. This has gotten quite a bit of love. I'm not sure if you can tell on camera. It's a merino yarn, and because of that, it just pills like crazy. So I don't wear this a lot. I don't tend to wear it to work or anything, because even with the gleaner and everything, it just doesn't look that pristine anymore, but it is super comfortable. And I do like the color, it's very wearable. So yeah, that's what I'm wearing today. Also, yes, I did get my hair cut. Oh my gosh, you guys. I wanted to get it cut, but it feels so short. Where is my hair? I used to have like a ton of hair and now I just don't, which I think is going to be really nice in terms of like spending time to dry it and wash it and make it look like a human head and all of that. But I'm still getting used to that. I'm not saying that to fish for compliments. I just... where did it all go? My hair. Anyways, lots of tangents already. Let's get into some knitting. So I have a finished object, you guys. Can I stop saying I have a finished object. Last week I showed you the very beginnings of a shawl by Stephen West, which was the Mild Magic shawl. I think I kept calling it Mild Mania. It's called Mild Magic. I'm sorry. And the question was, how fast can I knit that shawl? And the answer is very fast. In fact, I finished the entire shawl in just under a week. So I cast it on Friday a week ago, Friday night after work, and I think I bound it off on Thursday night, the week after. And yes, I work full time. Yes, I'm just crazy. So this is the Mount Magic Shawl by Stephen West, which was a mystery knit along of his a couple of years ago. Don't ask me how many. It's also in his new book, which is why I decided to cast it on, because I got his new book. And essentially, I was just so inspired by Stephen because he kept on talking about, just pick some colors, just pick a palette from your stash, just pick some even leftovers, and just go for it. And that's exactly what I did. So I'm happy to report this entire shawl is knit all out of leftovers. I didn't use a single full skein of yarn. I literally just grabbed a ton of mini skeins and leftover skeins, and I did use, I think, 2 full balls of mohair yarn, and then just some leftover mohair as well. And yeah, this is how it turned out, and I just love it so much. So it's a really cool construction. If you don't know the pattern, you start with this meshy section in the middle, and then you just kind of add different sections to it. So there's some brioche, there's garter stitch, seed stitch, and lots of faded sections, and I literally just kind of did whatever felt right, and I just love how this came out. I'm finding it really hard to show it to you guys because it's just so big, and it looks like I had planned out all these colors, and really I didn't. All I did was collect a ton of yarns that I wanted to put into this shawl, the kind of color palette that I wanted, and I just threw them in a basket sort of project bag thingy, and then I just grabbed whatever felt right, and this is how it turned out. I did use quite a bit of mohair, and I'm not a big mohair knitter, but it just felt right, and it was really fun to just use up my mohair leftovers and marl all these things together. So I think you're supposed to always marl 2 colors together, so hold 2 strands of yarn at the same time. And a lot of times I actually held 3, so I would hold 2 strands of fingering weight yarn and then also a mohair yarn. I also used my Titicaca leftovers, which is a whole lace weight alpaca yarn, I think, that I held double in my Love Note sweater. So I just used up a lot of yarn that I didn't really have any proper use for, and it just turned into this squishy thing, and I just love it. And also, because you're holding the yarn double, I think I used a 4.5 millimeter needle, and it just goes pretty fast, and it creates a really nice sort of thick squishy fabric. So I don't usually knit DK weight shawls or worsted shawls, which this would be, I guess. And yeah, oh my gosh, you guys, I just love this so much. So I did the medium size, and it's a big shawl, but it's not as slanted as I had expected, which is good. It's the perfect size. I was kind of expecting this to be so massive that I may just use it as a blanket on the couch, but this actually is very wearable. It's definitely chunky, it's big, it's heavy because it's a ton of superwash yarn, which I'm just not that used to knitting with anymore. But it's definitely just a really good size, and because it's a little bit more chunky, it just holds up really well around your neck. I'm not going to put it on because it's going to mess up with my entire microphone setup, and also I'm going to die of heat. But oh my gosh, I love this so much. This was one of the most fun knits I have ever done, and it's just because you keep on knitting these small sections, it makes it very manageable. So you're not knitting this huge thing. It's you knit a little garter, and then you change colors, and then you do a little bit of a different texture, and you pick up stitches, and it just went so quickly, and it was so much fun. I can definitely see myself knitting another one in the future. Also, if you've been watching for a while, you know that I want to knit all the Stephen West patterns. So yeah, that definitely fueled my addiction to that. Very happy to have this done, and it was funny because I finished it when we were near the Alps, and it was freezing. It was 7 or 8 degrees, and I didn't even bring my winter jacket because it's October. So I only had a light woolen jacket, and this huge shawl was just such a good source of warmth. And so I wore it right away. I haven't even blocked it. I was planning on blocking it, but now I'm just kind of tempted to not block it for now because it's fine. And yeah, I just really, really, really love this. I'm so happy to have it done. I thought the I-cord bind off would take me forever, but really it wasn't that bad. Because you do an I-cord around the entire length of the shawl. But again, I held 2 strands of fingering weight yarn and a strand of mohair together, and I finished it within a night. So maybe it took me like 2 or 3 hours, which for a huge I-cord bind off really isn't too bad. So that's done. I love it. I put 1 tassel. I'm not sure if I'm going to put more, if I'm just going to leave this 1 single tassel, but that's kind of cute. And it also took care of the ends. So yeah, there we are. All right, so that's it for my finished objects, and that's really where a ton of my knitting time went into. So I think before our holiday, I basically just knit on that every day and nothing else really. And only now that I've finished that, I've picked up a couple of other things as well. So, where should we start? There's the mystery knit along, which I think I will keep to the end because I'm sure there are some people who don't want to see it. So what else did I bring to show you today? I did bring my Cuyler shawl, which, why can't I open this project bag? Do you do that with your like drawstring project packs? You just close them so tightly that you can't open them anymore? In here I have my Cuyler shawl, which I have been knitting on for a while. This is yarn from, what's it called? I have the label here. Garthenor #1 Shetland. So this is the somewhat faded tag. I'm using the musket colorway, and this is a 350 meters per 50 grams, so it's definitely a light lace weight. And I talked about this a lot in the past. I really like it because it's a sheepy non-superwash Shetland yarn, but it's a single ply, so it's actually relatively soft. Not super soft, but quite soft for what it is. And I'm knitting the Cuyler shawl by Heidi Kirrmaier. And sorry for the needles that are clanging. But essentially it's a triangular shawl, and you knit a lot of lace and then you just keep on increasing. So this is where we are. I can't really see what I'm showing you, but it's a ton of lace. It's a really intuitive chart once you get into it. So I'm finding this quite relaxing to knit on by now. And now, as you can see, all the increases are happening in stockinette, so that's a relief. And essentially I'm just going to be doing this and keeping going like this forever and ever and ever until I either run out of patience or out of yarn. The original sample of this shawl is knit in a Garthenor yarn as well, but a thicker one. But I got inspired by Christine, who has the Rauwerk shop and yarn, and that's why I bought this, because she knit this in this yarn in exactly this colorway, and I just decided to copy her. So by using a lace weight yarn, it's just a very, very light shawl, and she made hers massive. It was absolutely massive, and it was amazing. And so I'm trying to keep going and not make it too small, because I wore hers and it was just a dream. It was like a piece that I want to have for years and years and years. So that's where we are with that. I'm using 3.5 millimeter needles, and yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm making, like, this is the progress that I made, because as you can tell, the rows are not quite long now. So I'm making good progress of about, wow, no. Look what I did. Coffee. I dropped my needle into my coffee. Crisis averted. I have saved the needles. I've saved the coffee. I don't know where I was, but I think I was pretty much done with showing you the shawl. You'll probably see this for another while, because I think this is going to take me a while, but that's fine. I'm not knitting on it a lot. I'm not pushing myself to finish it. I'm just knitting on it every now and then, and it's just a very relaxing knit. I mean, the rows are long, so you don't really see a lot of progress, but the process of knitting this is actually really nice with the yarn and the lace, and it's just enough happening that you don't get super bored. So yeah, that is my Cuyler shawl. I didn't bring out my eyeball shawl because I really barely worked on it. I think the amount of rows that I did on that is embarrassing, so I'm not going to talk about that. But I have done a little bit of progress, actually quite a bit of progress, on my Earnest cardigan, which is a cardigan by Johi Locatelli. I'm knitting this out of some stash from Oslo. So the yarn that I am using is Hillesvåg Sølje. At least that's how I think it is pronounced. It's colorway 2136. And it's this beautiful, beautiful, very woolly yarn that I chose specifically to knit this project. So I'm knitting the Earnest cardigan as part of the Johi Fall Cowl, which, if you don't know, is this huge knit along that Johi Locatelli, who is the designer of many beautiful garments and accessories as well, I guess, is running, I think, until November. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. I signed up for 3 projects, and really, I think I'm only going to get this one done and maybe the socks. I signed up for 2 garments, but I think I knew that wasn't going to happen. But at least this one is happening. So where are we on this? So this is the Earnest cardigan. As you can see, it is a cabled cardigan with a sort of like a shawl collar. So you knit the collar as you're also knitting on the body of the cardigan. I have separated for the sleeves, and now I am just knitting on the body. So it's knitted flat, and there's also a beautiful cable down the back. I'm not showing this to you very, very well. I'm sorry about that, but it's kind of hard to show, especially because my needles aren't super long. But this is where we are. I think you get the idea. And I still really, really, really love it. I mentioned last week that I tried it on and I was worried that it would be too small. But now that I've knit a little bit further on the body, I tried it on again and it fits amazingly. So I am so relieved, because I was quite worried about that, especially because this is a lot of knitting. This is a lot of work to knit this cardigan, and it would be just such a shame if it didn't fit. But you know what? I think it's going to fit just fine, and I'm going to wear this forever and ever again. So this is where we are on that. I hope you can tell. In terms of modifications, I mentioned last week that I'm knitting the arms in stockinette. And besides that, I'm really just sticking to the pattern. So there's a lot of cables. There's a lot of this textured stitch, which I won't give away. I'm knitting the entire thing without a cable needle, so that's totally doable. And I just really want to knit all of Johi's cabled things. So she has a ton of different cabled sweaters. I think she has the All of the Lights cardigan, which is very, very involved, but I'm very interested in that as well. I also have the yarn to knit the Samal cardigan, which really, when I thought about it, is very similar to this, because it also has like a textured stitch and it also has cables. So I'm not sure if that's going to happen, but I'm really, really enjoying this. I'm knitting this on a 3mm needle, so it feels like a lot of knitting. It's not the fastest project for sure. Like, this is the amount of progress I did from last time I showed this to you. So again, maybe just under 4 inches. And I put quite a bit of work into this, but I think it will be worth it in the end. And I just love how, like, the yarn and the color and the cables, everything is just playing together very, very nicely. And yeah, so that's where we are with that. And again, I'm just so relieved that it fits. So yeah, that really only leaves me to talk about the Starflake mystery knit along, which is the current mystery knit along that Stephen West is running, and he just launched the first clue last Friday, so 2 days ago. So I'm going to show the thing, and if you don't want to see it, maybe just switch off now or skip ahead a good 10 minutes, because really, I don't think I'll be talking about much else after that, so you won't be missing much. So yeah, first of all, let's talk about the yarn that I'm using. I only really allowed myself to take part in this mystery knit along. Well, I was convinced by Marion, and then me and her, we also convinced our friend Melanie of Braid and Tinker to join in. And I was like, you know what? I'll only jump in if I have yarn in stash because I don't need to buy more yarn. And I did, and I bought two. You need 2 skeins of each color of fingering weight yarn. And that actually turned out to be perfect because I had exactly 1 quantity like that in my stash that I had bought quite a while ago to knit the Shu Sui shrag, which is this huge like brioche cardigan. Because I was really, really into that, and then I kind of realized that I will never knit that. So this yarn has just been sitting in stash ever since, and so it was perfect. So this is Malabrigo sock, which is I think 100% merino yarn. And here we are. I was like, I pulled out the tags. So I have 2 colorways, the colorway Pearl and the colorway Light of Love. So Pearl is this beautiful, beautiful beigey gray. I actually really want to knit like something basic out of this color by itself too, because it's just such a beautiful color. And ignore my messy cake. My ball winder had a lot of trouble winding this yarn, I think because it's just a very, very smooth yarn. And I mean, this is just very me. It's beautiful, it's slightly tonal. I have 2 skeins of each and they don't match up very well, but I think with this design it won't really matter. So those are the 2 colors that I chose, and I'm very happy to be knitting from stash once again. And now I'm going to show you the shawl, so please, final warning, I will show it. Look away if you don't want to see it. It's going to be hard to show you anyways, because I'm dropping stitches. Saved them. Because my needle isn't super big, but essentially the first clue had 2 sections, and I'm done with section number 1. And I'm close to being done with section number 2. So this is where we are. How pretty is that? I'm trying not to like say too much about the pattern, but you get the idea of the shape and everything. And how cool is that? Like only Stephen West would come up with something like that and make that work. I'm just in awe of that. So section 1 was super fast. Section 2 looks like it's very fast, but there's actually a lot of stitches on here, like a lot of them. But I'm almost done. I think I have like 2 more stripes to go, and then I will be done with the first clue. And yeah, so here we are. Very bright. Don't know how it's going to go. Don't know how I feel about it yet, but I'm just doing it for the fun of it. And also, I don't know, it's just a really cool construction. I will say that I found it a little bit fiddly. I think I always expect Stephen West's patterns to be quite easy because I feel like so many people and knitters knit them, and I kind of always expect them to be super beginner friendly. And I'm not saying this isn't, but just by all these different shapes, like you knit in so many different directions and stuff, it's actually more complicated than I thought, which I really, really like. I'm not sure if that's making any sense, but anyways, so this is where we are on that. I'll probably try to finish the clue today because then I have some other things that I want to work on, and I have like a fun secret project which I will probably be starting very, very soon. So yeah, that's that. That is my mystery knit along. It's called the Starflake MCal. And of course, I think you can join in anytime. So I did 1 Stephen West mystery knit along. I did the Doodler, which was I think 4 years ago, maybe. I know we were still living in Würzburg, so I think it was 4 years ago, possibly 5. And I didn't really enjoy that so much because I think I also kind of chose colors too randomly, and I've seen versions of that shawl which I really liked, but I wasn't too sure. So for a couple of years, I never joined into the mystery knit-alongs again. And I think sometimes if you're really specific as in terms of what you want and color placement and stuff, it's always better to just wait and then knit it later. But every now and then, it's just so fun. And I thought this time with the yarn requirements, like 4 skeins of yarn is still a lot of yarn, and it's still a lot of like money behind that. But it kind of worked with what I had, because I would probably not buy like a huge kit for a mystery knit along. That's just me personally. I'm not saying you can't or you shouldn't. It's just my inner control freak. So yeah, anyways, that's where we are. I'm really enjoying it so far. And yeah, that's what I've obviously been working on since Friday, mostly. And yeah, that's pretty much it. All right, that's it in terms of my knitting. I haven't done any spinning. I want to do all these things like knitting and spinning, and I just don't have the time for it, which is so sad. And I mean, I spend a lot of time knitting, so I really can't complain, but it's just never enough because I like knitting so much. And now it's like proper fall outside, and it's cold, and I want to wear all the knitwear, and I have this panic where I'm like, if I want the really warm wintry things, I should have knit them by now. And I'm just, yeah, my knitting mojo is very, very high. Yeah. So that's pretty much all about that. In terms of life in general, I don't have anything super interesting to report. Like I mentioned last week, we spent 3 days away, which was just really nice to just breathe and hang out and get away from everything. And I think it was much needed. My work has been pretty stressful. I'm actively trying to reduce stress at the moment. Not sure how that's going, but at least I'm aware of it, so I think that's good. And I'm trying to be a bit more healthy, eat more healthy, do more sports, like all these things that you always know that you're supposed to do, but you kind of forget because life is busy. So yeah, I'm trying to take it a little bit slower, and going away for a couple of days was just really, really good for that. We actually met up with my parents, who were on their way to another vacation, so that was quite fun for like a dinner. And then, like I said, the weather was quite bad, so we did like a little shopping trip. I got my hair cut. We ran a couple of errands, and then essentially we just decided to just go with it and hang out on the couch all weekend, watching How to Get Away with Murder, because oh my gosh, I love that series, and that 4th season is amazing. I was happy because I had lots of time to do some knitting, and yeah, that was pretty much it. So yeah, what else is there to report? Next weekend I am now more committed, and planning to go to Wollfest Vaterstetten. If you're in the area, please do say hi if you see me. Right now we are aiming to go on the Saturday. That may change, but that's kind of where I'm leaning for at the moment, which would then mean that I could probably do a podcast on Sunday and show you what I got, if I got something, which you'll all be laughing at me because, of course, I will be getting something. It was so funny after my Oslo haul and all of that, which I think was 3 videos ago, maybe 2, maybe 3. I kind of said that I'm thinking about not buying yarn for a while, and a couple of viewers just laughed at me, and that was hilarious. Like, as if you're going on a yarn diet, Julia. Like, that's crazy. Anyways, that's what's happening. That's what will be happening next week. So I shall be back with another episode then. Until then, thank you so much for watching this podcast. I really, really, really hope that you enjoyed it. And I will see you again very soon. Until then, happy knitting. Bye.